So, um, all right, my name is Ramesh Nair, and I am the Young Professionals representative to the IEEE USA board. My day job is I am a CAD engineer, a design CAD engineer with Intel in Folsom, California. And what we are going to do in this webinar is basically give an overview of what the IEEE Young Professionals program is. And we'll also go over what benefits and resources that IEEE USA in particular provides to the early career professionals. All right. So I think I have a bunch of slides. We'll go over that in the first maybe 30 to 35 minutes. And then in case you have any questions, you can use the chat box and I'll be happy to address those questions for you. All right. What is IEEE Young Professionals, right? So most of the time people are actually confused who are IEEE Young Professionals. So the technical term for young professionals is basically in IEEE is basically graduated from their first professional degree within the last 15 years. So if you actually fall into this criteria, you are by default an IEEE Young Professional when you renew your IEEE membership. That's actually added on to your benefit. And then for people who don't fall in this criteria, you can always opt in to be a young professional. So that's a $0 charge when you actually renew your IEEE membership. You can always opt in and then be a IEEE young professional. So the map here below, it actually shows it's a pin for all the affinity groups that we have across the world. So we have around 200 affinity groups. So affinity group is something that each section can actually form in there locally to actually attract young professionals and do events catered for young professionals. So um, so we have around 200 affinity groups around the world. I think there are 85 in the US. And so assuming we have like around 400,000 or 410,000 IEEE members, it's actually assumed that we have 1 out of 4 member is a young professional. So we have around 106,000 young professionals across 181 countries, and that's a huge number that we have. And that's basically about IEEE young professionals. And we look into some membership next. So membership statistics across the US. So if we look at, so we have 10 regions across the world, 6 of them in the US. So the highlighted number, which is regions 1 to 6, we see that there is a decline in IEEE Young Professional membership. So this is from March 2019, which is the latest data that I have, and we are declining around close to 2%, minus 1.8%. So and this is seen across IEEE, where all the higher grade membership is actually declining, right? So uh, biggest thing that I have seen is basically people don't know what the benefits or the resources that is there for early career professionals. So mostly students actually finish their IEEE membership and then they just don't renew their membership. So that's why we always see a decline in young professional membership, especially in the US. But if you look at region 10, for example, which is China and India and all those Asian countries, those are actually they have some developing countries, and their membership is actually growing 6% positive, right? So they are actually getting a lot of benefits by being part of IEEE. And so what this webinar is actually going to address is basically what IEEE USA in particular is advocating or is actually giving to the young professionals and early career professionals, and why you need to stay relevant with IEEE, or why you need to have a professional membership with IEEE. All right. So I hope I will be able to address this at the end of this webinar. So why does IEEE need us? So this is some graph, showing. So the first graph which I'm looking into is basically the number of members on the y-axis and the age on the x-axis. Right. So if you look at the black number, which is black graph, which is basically the all members, or the total number of members, and then there is a blue graph, which is basically just the members alone, which is not senior members or student members, just the members, right? So there is a big gap between the black line and the blue line when you look at the ages from 20 to 30, and then it just catches up once the age group reaches like 35, 40 plus, right? So we are actually missing a lot of young engineers in IEEE. And the second graph actually shows over the years, for the last 10 years, what is the mean age of IEEE members, and that's actually going up. That means IEEE is an aging organization. So 10 years from now, the young professionals who are there today are going to be, the senior leaders in IEEE, right? So we need to attract as many young members or young engineers into IEEE now, so that IEEE as an organization, stays relevant and keeps growing over the years. So I want to touch upon some of the projects that IEEE Young Professionals in general is doing. It started like a couple of years back, and it's still progressing this year until end of this year, right? So access to technical content via IEEE Explore. So if you are an IEEE member, there is a limit on or how much articles you can actually access to IEEE. So it doesn't come for free with your membership, right? So either you need to have access through your university or you need to have access through your company that you work for. So then only you will be able to access IEEE Explore articles. So one of the pilot projects that IEEE Young Professionals is doing, or one of the surveys that we've got, is basically young members want to access this technical content from IEEE Explore. And in order to, so there is a monthly subscription fee that members usually pay along with their membership in order to access Explore. But we are trying out a pilot program for IEEE Young Professionals alone, where a subsidized charge, say $5 for 3 articles a month, something like that. So we are trying to subsidize the charge for IEEE Young Professionals in order to access IEEE Explore. And the pilot for this program is in progress for 2019. And we are opting out graduate students from this program uh, because graduate students will always have access through to IEEE Explore through their university. So that's one of the projects. And then the next project is micro volunteering project. So the term micro volunteering is basically, we all are busy with our day-to-day lives. We have our own job, and other things. So we do people, or at least the young engineers, they are just starting their career. They're just, they want to impress at their work, so they want to actually put in more hours at work, do more work, and they won't have much time to volunteer for IEEE, right? So this program is actually for those people. So say you don't have time to actually commit to like 1 year or 2 year of volunteering, but instead say you are on a Saturday and you don't have much work on that on Saturday. So basically you want to help out volunteering for like 1 or 2 hours, right? So micro volunteering is a platform that would, so basically people can actually go and post in volunteering opportunities. So say we need to create a small web page for so and so activity. So that's a micro volunteering project. Or say we have a conference happening in this location. Say we have a conference in Chicago, and we want two people to actually, be at the conference at the registration table for like say 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. So that's a micro volunteering project. So it's not like a year-long commitment or a month-long commitment projects, but basically for hourly projects or small projects, so that young engineers can actually feel that they are part of the organization. They can volunteer, but at the same time not commit a lot of time for volunteering. So that's a project that's happening. So this is actually being piloted by 25 sections and 25 societies within IEEE. The pilot is supposed to end in November, and then fully, a new platform is supposed to roll out, which in which each all sections and conferences and societies can actually be part of this project. So that's micro volunteering. I think that's a really good project to attract busy IEEE members into volunteering. That's a project. So the next one, next 2 points basically presence at high profile events and funding. So the high profile events is basically IEEE young professionals in should have high should have access to high profile events. So say for example, the CES conference, right? The Consumer Electronics Show, which is happening in Vegas every year in January. So those are like very big technical conferences, the South by Southwest. So things like that, IEEE Young Professionals goes in there and puts a stall or a booth exhibition table in there and tells people so there will be a lot of non-members, industry, academia, all these people actually attending these events, right? So there are like 10,000s of people, and that's the ideal platform for young professionals to showcase themselves and say that, okay, we have a program called Young Professionals within IEEE, why don't you be part of it? So that's presence at high profile events. And funding for local activities is basically the funding that is going to each and every affinity group. So we discussed about having 200 affinity groups worldwide. So the funding here is basically to promote activities within these affinity groups. So I'll talk about funding in the next slide more, but this is just to make sure that there is resources available within IEEE for young professionals in order to carry out events. So this is the funding portal. So people on the call, if you are affinity group leaders or if you're part of any affinity group, and if you have not yet applied for funding this year, please, I strongly encourage you to actually apply for funding. So the website is there on the slide, yp.ieee.org/funding-opportunities, or you can just Google this and you will get it right away. So there are three types of funding available this year. The first one is called STEP, which is a Student Transition Elevation Partnership. So STEP is basically an event that a young professional group would actually go to senior graduating students at universities, and they tell about IEEE Young Professionals. So most of the students I've spoken to think that IEEE is just a student club, right? So that's no longer the case, or that's an incorrect assumption that they have. So it's no longer a student club. It's not a student club. So this IEEE Young Professional Group will actually go to the university and tell, so you're graduating this year, so why don't you be part of IEEE Young Professionals program? And so there is funding available for each of those events. That's STEP event, and the affinity group can actually go and apply for funding through this website, and they can get the funding, and they can just do any event and then submit the follow-up materials and get the funding to their sections. All right, so that's STEP event. So local activity is any activity that you do, right? So say it could be a social event, it could be a technical talk, it could be any kind of events. It could be a summer barbecue, right? So it could be any event that you do in your affinity group to attract members and non-members to come and socialize. So there is no guideline on what activity it could be. It could be any activity. So, but if you go to the website, you can actually get examples of what activities it can be. So that's local activity, and that's like $750 per event. And so each of these funding is actually, each affinity group can apply once, right? So you can apply for the STEP funding ones, you can apply for local activity ones, and you can apply for meetup ones. So, and then once by the end of the year, if there is more funding left over, the same affinity groups can actually go ahead and apply again. All right, so that's the criteria for this funding. And so, say you have a local activity and you don't spend this entire $750, that's okay. You can just spend $300 and then maybe $400 for the next event. So, what we want to do is we want affinity groups to have more events so that they actually involve their local members. And the meetup is basically, say you want to hold a meetup, say a conference is coming to town, right? So say I am in Santa Clara and a big conference on 5G is coming to town, and there are some really good speakers at that conference. And what the affinity group or the young professional group will do is they will actually do a meetup along with the conference, so that the local members in their section can actually go and meet these conference attendees without actually having to attend the conference, right? So say the conference is like $1,000 for registration. So you don't have to pay that $1,000, but you go to this meetup for say 1 hour or 2 hours, and then actually interact with the conference attendees. And at the same time, it's a social event. There will be food, drinks, and all these things. So that's a meetup. So it's basically a meetup event for the local members with the conference attendees. So that's one example of a meetup. It could be anything. It need not be a conference, right? So it could be a bigger event that you're doing in your section or your affinity group. So which would qualify to be a meetup. So, but it should be a bigger scale because there is more funding to that. So so that's about the three funding opportunities. So again, if you have not yet if you've not yet applied for funding this year for using this portal, I strongly encourage you to go ahead and apply for this funding. So next I want to talk. So this is the first 10 minutes I talked about IEEE Young Professionals program as such, what the projects they're doing, and that's general stuff, right? So it's available to everyone else. So now what I want to do is basically I want to talk about how IEEE USA in particular serves the young professionals, right? So we all know that in order to be successful in your career, it's not just the technical skills that you need. You need to be technically good. That's given for sure. But it's not just the technical skills. You need to know how to talk with people. You need to have that social skills in order to advance in your career. And that's one of the biggest thing that IEEE USA is giving. Career relevant non-technical skills and professional development stuff. So we'll talk more about it, but this is one of the key points that IEEE USA as such would provide to early career professionals. And there is also something called an IEEE USA annual salary survey. And so if you're a higher grade member or not, or above, I don't think graduate students are eligible for it, but if you're a member or above grade in IEEE, you would have got an email to be part of an IEEE annual survey. And this is actually benchmarking the salary for each and every job opportunity or each and every job that is available in the market, right? So you can actually go ahead and look at the salary benchmarking surveys and understand, okay, if you're being paid well or if you want to transition to a different career, what is the salary that those opportunities are giving to you, right? So this is another benefit that is easily available. So the next benefit basically is understanding the profession. So there are a lot of activities on public policy, and there are a lot of bills and activities that is happening in Washington, in Congress and in the Senate, for each and every public policy issue that is being tackled by engineers, right? Um, so IEEE USA serves as the voice for science and technology professionals in Washington. So we are like 180,000 members organization in IEEE USA. So we actually serve as the voice for engineers in Washington to our legislators. So that's one of the benefits that IEEE USA in particular provides to young professionals. And also by creating opportunities, right? So I'll talk about conferences and activities that young professionals do, but creating opportunities to become more engaged, networking events, social events, and all these things that IEEE USA does. So these are some of the aspects that on how IEEE USA in particular serves the young professionals, and we'll go in detail over each and every one of them. So first, the webinar. So for example, this is a webinar, right? So in this webinar, we are talking about young professionals and IEEE, but there are actually webinars that happens, on very key non-technical and professional development stuff. For example, how to find your next job, maintaining your career, how to negotiate a salary, and all these things. These are things which you cannot get from work. You need to be part of any professional community, or you need to network in order to actually understand these things. So there are a bunch of free webinars that IEEE provides. I think the frequency would vary, but there is a whole lot of webinars, and there is a website here. I've just put it out so that you guys can understand. IEEEUSA.org careers website, or you can just go to uh, IEEE USA website, and it's quite easy to find out. So for example, these are some of the webinars that has been done in the past, right? So job search and career. So that is one thing that young professionals would really want. How do you? So once if you're a graduate student, or if you're just graduating, the first thing that you will come to your mind is, how do you land in your dream job? So that's one thing we've done. How to build up your resume. Job seeking, how to actually negotiate salary. So these are some of the things that actually we have done in webinars. So personal development. Once you are in a job, how do you actually develop yourself? If you're thinking that you're stagnant in your job, that means you're not growing. So how do you grow in your job? What technical skills you need? How do you talk with your managers and things like that? So that's personal development. Evolving workforce, policy and government relations. So if you are interested in public policy, if you want to understand how IEEE USA is influencing public policy in Washington, every month we have a legislative update, and I think the next one is on 16th of May. Or if you can just look at the IEEE USA website, you will have information on that. But um, every month there is a public policy legislative update webinar, and so I encourage you to attend that. So you can understand how IEEE USA is actually influencing public policy in Washington. And then we also have webinars, just for fun kind of thing, home brewing. That was one of the webinars that was done in the past, right? Um, so these are some of the webinars that IEEE USA has done in the past and will continue to do. So recordings for all of these webinars should be available in our website as well. So in case you missed the webinar, that's fine. You can just go ahead and view the recording later on. Uh, all right. So in terms of professional development, we have something called ebooks and audiobooks. So every month, IEEE USA actually puts out a book, ebook, and it is actually free for download to most of the IEEE members. And there will be I think there will be a promotion that goes on in our social media channels about the release of each and every audiobook or ebook. And so some of the audiobooks that we have actually published in the past is basically, staying sharp inside your company. So these are some of the books, these are some of the professional development things that we need as engineers in order to excel in our career. And especially if you are young and if you've just started your job, you will definitely need access to things like this. And this is free of cost if you're an IEEE member. Some of them are free of cost, and some of them you have to pay, which is basically available in the shop, ieeeusa.org/shop website. And yeah, tips for young engineers, that's another book that we have published, developing your path, landing your dream career. So these are actually things which you cannot get in your work. You need to have access to some professional society, and that's what IEEE USA is actually providing to you. So this one is training for industry professionals. So this is not just from IEEE USA. This is basically the courses list that is available through IEEE Explore, right? So so as industry professional, we all need continuing education. For example, machine learning and artificial intelligence, we never knew about these things maybe 10 years back. So if you have started working like 10 years back, you're still a young professional, right? Because you've just graduated, you have graduated in the last 15 years, right? So when you started your work, you might have not taken courses on machine learning or artificial intelligence at school, so you have no idea what that is. And then at work, you need to apply your skills in order to excel at that, because those are some of the top paying jobs right now in the industry, right? So things like that, for things like that, we need to have access to continued education. So as engineers, we always keep learning. We always need to have access to technical content, professional development, and social content, right? So for technical stuff, we actually have something called training for industry professionals through IEEE Explore. And if you're interested more on this, there is a website that is there, ieeeexplore.org courses. And there is also a free trial of courses that is available. So for each of these programs, for example, 5G, big data, artificial intelligence, autonomous driving, and all these things, right? So there is basic set of courses that is free, and then there is in-depth analysis and in-depth courses that that is actually available for a subscription. So if you have not yet visited this website, I strongly encourage you to go and check. And the best part of this is you can actually earn professional development credits or continuing education credits towards each of these hours that you spend for these courses, right? So that is one benefit. And if your company as such, wants to get a certification program through IEEE, that is also available through these courses. So your company can actually, partner with IEEE and come up with the course set that is needed for your professionals in your industry, and come up with the course list that is available, that will excel in your career, right? So if you've not yet visited, I strongly encourage you to go ahead and visit this website and learn more about the training that is available for industry professionals. I want to talk about EVO 19, which is a flagship conference from IEEE USA, and the IEEE Rising Stars conference. So we talked about activities and events that IEEE young professionals can engage in, and these are the top two conferences happening in the US, which is attracting over 250 to 300, or in Rising Stars, we had like 350 attendees last year. So these are the conferences that you need to be if you're a young professional. So the EVO conference, which is Evolution of You, that's happening in Pittsburgh, 2 to 3 August 2019. And it's basically the premier leadership conference. So if you go to the conference website, you'll see, we'll have keynotes, we'll have interactive sessions, we will have, panelists, career development. You will get to network and meet a lot of people. Maybe you will be meeting with people who are going to hire you for your next job. So there is a lot of stuff happening at EVO conference. If you have not yet registered, there is the early bird deadline expires on May 15th. So I strongly encourage you to go ahead and register for this conference. The evoconference.org, you can just go to this website. The registration is up. The initial set of speakers are up. So this is going to be the event that you need to be, if you are an early leader or an early professional, an emerging leader, or you want to be a leader, right? So this is I strongly encourage you to be part of this conference. And then the Rising Stars conference. So Rising Stars, the first one, the 2019 conference happened in early January. So the next one is going to happen 3 to 5 2020. January in 2020, and this happens right before CES, which is the Consumer Electronics Show, and it happens in Las Vegas. So if you're interested, you can attend Rising Stars and then stay around for Consumer Electronics Show as well. So because there are subsidized tickets available to CES through Rising Stars. So Rising Stars is basically a conference that is targeted for both technical and professional development, right? So we'll have talks on 5G, autonomous driving, and all the key technology stuff that is happening nowadays. And then we'll have a track on professional development. So you can actually choose what track you want to go to. And by the end of the 2-day conference, you actually will have, gained insight on both technical development and professional development. So we'll have like 4 sessions happening in parallel. You can choose what session you want to go to and just attend it. So the website is IEEE-risingstars.org. That's the website, and the next one is happening in 2020, and the registration should open up, I think, early fall, right? So that's the conference. And then one thing I want to mention about EVO is it used to be something called Future Leaders Forum in the past. Last year it was called Future Leaders Forum, and we have evolved it to be something called EVO, attracting early and mid-career professionals. Okay, so one thing what we've done and we will continue to do in EVO again this year is basically young professionals, photo booth, or what do you say, headshots taken for young professionals, which is available. So, for example, if you want a good professional headshot for your LinkedIn profile, right? So you can be at EVO. There is headshots taken by professional photographers. You can actually use it for your LinkedIn profile. This is something which we do, or as a branding for young professionals at the EVO conference. So if you have both the conferences are equally good. So if you are interested, please attend these conferences. So we also have something called a Leadership Connection newsletter. So the IEEE USA newsletter that goes out every month, and this is basically talking about each and every conference. For example, this webinar was publicized at that newsletter. So there is a lot of stuff or a lot of things that is actually catered towards young professionals, and we try to summarize this in a newsletter every month, and we actually send it out. And it's not just IEEE USA related stuff. It also talks about what the membership and geographic activities, which is the MGA board in IEEE, does, the global IEEE young professionals, what they are doing. If there are any professional development or relevant talks available through IEEE TV, we actually display that. So there is a whole lot of stuff, or whole lot of early career development related activities that is happening, and then we try to summarize it every month and send it out as a newsletter. So if you would like to be part of it, we can actually add you. It reaches out to almost 42,000 members every month. And next thing is about IEEE public policy, IEEE USA public policy, right? So one of the biggest benefit that IEEE USA as such would do is like exercising engineers' rights and engineer are. So basically, what IEEE USA as such, the IEEE USA government relations as such would do is tell or try to lobby the Congress and lawmakers, and try to let them understand what we need as science and technology professionals, right? So I've just listed some of the things that IEEE USA has succeeded in the past, and some things that IEEE USA right now is working on. So there is a whole lot of public policy committees within IEEE USA. And for example, privacy, communications policy, entrepreneurship policy, artificial intelligence is another policy. So there is a whole lot of policy. So if you go to the IEEE USA website, ieeeusa.org/advocacy, you can actually see all the policy committees that IEEE USA has, and what each and every committee is trying to do. So there are position statements for each and every item that we actually try to tackle, right? So there is policy statement what IEEE USA is trying to do, and then you can actually read that online. And if you're actually interested, if you're a young professional, and if you're actually interested to be part of any of these public policy committees, please send me an email. I'll share my email address at the end of my presentation, but please send me an email, and we will be happy to add you, because we want our public policy committees to be diverse, and we want the voice of young professionals in these public policy and issues that is actually relevant to our job, right? So we want young professionals to get more involved in public policy. So please let me know if you are interested. The next one is basically WISE, which is the Washington Internship for Students of Engineering, and it is available to juniors, seniors, and graduate students, right? So this is one of the internship programs that was rated among the top 100 by Princeton Review. And what happens in this internship is basically you spend a summer in DC, and you learn about public policy. You meet with policymakers. It will be a totally different experience for you, and you will also get a stipend, right? So this is basically the internship that if you're interested to be part of public policy, and if you want to know what's happening in Washington, right? So the website is wise-intern.org, and I'm not sure about the timelines yet, but you please go ahead and visit this website in case you have questions, or if you're interested to be part of this internship program. Um, the next thing is about IEEE USA SPAX, or SPAX. This is basically so this is basically for students alone, not for young professionals. But I thought this will be relevant for graduate students, at least, who are young professionals or senior graduating students, right? So so basically what SPAX is basically, it's developing, implementing, and promoting activities within students. So it used to be SPAC before. It used to be a conference, but it's evolved from SPAC to something called X. So X can be anything, it can be a conference, it can be a networking event, it can be team building. You can invite a speaker, whatever it is, as long as it depends, or as long as the content of the event is basically on career development. So if you do something on career development, there is funding available through IEEE USA for this, and each and every student branch can actually apply for funding. I think twice a year. Yeah, twice a calendar year, and either they actually send the speakers. So there is a whole list of speakers that IEEE USA has, who actually goes for this SPAX events, right? So um, either they will actually send you a speaker, or they will actually give $400 in matching funds, right? So this is basically an event that if you're a student, if you want to boost your resume, this is what you should be doing. If you've conducted a SPAX event, you will actually gain organizational skills. You will know how to conduct events, that will actually help you in your career later on. So the website is here, ieeeusa.org/SPAX. So if you've not yet done events using this funding, I strongly encourage you to actually go ahead and do that. So government fellowships. So IEEE USA has a bunch of government fellowships that's available, and this is basically you're going to spend, it's a fellowship, right? So you're going to spend a year working with the State Department, USAID, or the US Congress, right? And it is actually open to recent graduates with PhD or mid-career professionals. So if you want to take a break, and you want to do something for you want to understand what's happening in Washington, public policy related stuff, this is something which you can apply for. And the application is online, I guess. So you can actually go to this website to learn more about this fellowship. It's IEEEusa.org, advocacy, and then government fellowship. So I've mentioned a lot of websites in here, right? So, but each of them is actually there on the IEEE USA website. So if you go to IEEEusa.org and look around career development, professional development, government relations, media, and all these things, so there is a whole lot of things that's available in the IEEE USA website. So if you've not yet visited, I strongly encourage you to go ahead and check. There may be some things which I'm not mentioning in this webinar that might be of interest to you, right? So I strongly encourage you to actually go ahead and visit IEEEusa.org, which is our website, in order to learn more about all these things. So government fellowships is something which is available. So the previous one, which is WISE, which was a student internship, even graduate students are eligible for that. So that was an internship program, whereas this is a fellowship program, right? Uh, Next is IEEE Entrepreneurship. So this is also something coming from the global IEEE, not just IEEE USA alone. So there is something called entrepreneurship.ieee.org. So I've had friends in college, when they used to have really good ideas, and they wanted to be entrepreneurs, right? So all of these companies, say Apple and Facebook and Amazon, Google, whatever, right? So all of these started when people were in college and they had some brand new idea, right? So entrepreneurship is something that is basically, we want to encourage among engineers, and that's what IEEE is also doing, right? So IEEE has an entrepreneurship community actually. So it is basically a community of startups, young professionals, investors, VCs, all these people together come together in something called IEEE Entrepreneurship, and they actually facilitate discussions among startups and VCs, so that they actually understand what they are lacking and what funding opportunities that they have, and they actually inspires or promotes entrepreneurship within the IEEE community, right? So that's what IEEE entrepreneurship is, and there is a whole lot of activities that they do, and one of the standing out activity that they do is basically N3XT, and this is basically conferences, events that's happening. I think it happens like across the world, and N3XT is basically an event that is put together by IEEE, where the entrepreneurship community comes in, the VCs comes in, and they facilitate collaboration, right? So they actually bring in speakers. There will be panel discussions. There will be entrepreneurs from different areas that's coming in. So they are bringing in all these people together for cultivating or for promoting discussions and interaction among themselves. So this is something which IEEE young professionals in general would be very keen in, because if you are striving to be an entrepreneur, or if you have an idea to be an entrepreneur, you need to be part of this community, right? So go to entrepreneurship.ieee.org, and there is a whole lot of information and activities in there. So, so to start summarizing what we discussed, you can actually learn, you can actually contribute, and actually boost your resume all through by volunteering, right? So, the biggest benefit I personally have had through IEEE is being a volunteer, right? So, and through IEEE and IEEE USA, there is a whole lot of volunteering opportunities that's available. It need not be if you're a young professional, and if you are stuck, you have no idea what to do, there are a whole lot of resources that's available. And if you want to volunteer, here you go, you have a whole lot of volunteering opportunities that is available. So in communications, in public awareness, so as I mentioned, all the public policy committees, in diversity, employment career opportunities, EVO and the Rising Stars, conference planning, that's another thing which we can do, which if you're interested in to be part of, and yeah, artificial intelligence, energy, research and development, space, transportation, entrepreneurship, communication. These are the public policy committees that we have. So as I mentioned before, if you're interested to be part of any of these public policy committees, please do let me know. And we also have on to our website, you can actually see what these volunteering opportunities are. And I strongly encourage you to start volunteering if you have not yet started to volunteer. And IEEE USA would be your go-to place for any volunteering opportunities, right? So I know we have discussed a lot of information today. The recording for this webinar will be available. But if you want to stay relevant, right? So if you want to know, maybe next week there is a webinar, right? So if you want to know what's happening, I strongly encourage you to follow our Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn page. So we have a huge social media presence, and we are across the platforms, everywhere. So we actually, so I talked about ebooks, for example, right? So the ebooks is available for download for like 10 days, one every month, right? So, and there is a code available to download. So if you're following the Facebook page, you will actually be the first one to know, oh, okay, this ebook has actually come out. Let me go and download. So I strongly encourage you to follow our Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn pages. We actually cover a lot of activities through social media, all the webinars, all the ebooks, all the career related stuff, all the public policy related stuff. So we have a whole lot of stuff that's happening in social media. So please follow our Facebook and LinkedIn and Instagram pages. There is also live coverage of events. So if IEEE USA is exhibiting in some conferences or events, there is live coverage happening from those events, right? And this thing is something which is new, Instagram theme days, right? So we have something called Motivation Monday. So there is a good quote on Monday morning when you wake up on IEEE USA Instagram page, right? So, and Tech Tuesday is something on the latest technology that's happening. Wisdom Wednesday. So these are like theme days on Instagram, which is very nice. So I personally liked it. So that's why I thought I'll put it here. So the important point is basically please stay connected with us through social media so that you actually know what's happening. And if you have, if you want to have questions, you can just directly chat with the admin. So I strongly encourage you to follow our social media channels. With that, that's all I had for today. I hope I was able to actually convey what IEEE USA and what IEEE Young Professionals program is, and how IEEE USA is actually catered towards helping young professionals, because you are the next generation engineers, and you are the next generation leaders within IEEE. And we want young professionals within IEEE, within IEEE USA, and we want you guys to get involved with all of our stuff, even public policy, careers, everything, right? So if you have any questions, my email address is ramesh Nair at IEEE.org, RAMESHNAIR at IEEE.org. You can always send me an email. Feel free to send me an email in case you have questions on something I've covered or something which I don't know. I'll try to find out for you. So my job is basically to represent young professionals to the IEEE USA board, and I wouldn't be able to do a good job in case I don't get feedback. So please do let me know where we can actually help and improve the IEEE USA and the Young Professionals program better. That's all I had for my slides. Daryl, do we have any questions?
No, we don't have any questions so far. Everyone, I've sent y'all a few messages in the chat pod, so please type your questions in the chat pod. We'll give it a minute or so to see if anyone submits any questions. In the meantime, I just want to say thank you, Ramesh, for giving this webinar. It's been very insightful, especially when you promote our IEEE USA programs. And I wanted to remind everybody that, like Ramesh said, to please check the IEEE USA website for future upcoming webinars. And that's about it. We're still waiting on questions. I don't see any, so they're asking if the slide, where can the slides be found. We're going to put, if you go to the IEEE USA website, the recording will be on the IEEE USA website, and we'll also include the slides as well. So I'm not seeing any further questions, so you have Ramesh's email address if you want to address any personal questions to him. And that's about it, so I'll just go ahead and end the webinar. Thank you, Ramesh, so much. Did you have any last words for us?
All right, thank you for all who joined. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Thanks, everyone, and again, go to IEEE USA to IEEEUSA.org to find future webinars. Thanks so much. Ramesh. Let me see. Have you thought of any ways to attract young engineers? That was a question that just came in.
All right. So attracting young engineers, right? So this webinar, for example, so we are actually showcasing what all IEEE USA can provide for young engineers, right? So we've discussed a whole lot of activities and stuff. So even if you land in your job, you went to a career fair through IEEE and then you got a job, and that's not just it. Even if you land in your job, you need to keep learning, and you need to have networking and social skills in order to excel in your career, right? So the way we want to attract young professionals is basically telling all our benefits and advantages that we have. And webinars like this and, activities that we are doing, we need to showcase them and tell them, you know what, IEEE is doing all these things, why don't you be part of it? So that's how we should be attracting young engineers. And it's up to each and every one of us, right? So one webinar is not going to change the world, right? So we want each and every one of you who are attending to get inspired, and you want to go to your local affinity groups, local sections, local universities, and, tell them, what we have young professionals program. We want you to be part of it, and how can we do better?
All right. Well, cool. All right. Well, again, thank you so much. Thanks, everyone, for attending, and I'm going to go ahead and end the webinar. Thank you so much, Ramesh, okay?
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye.